Welcome to this week's episode of Beyond This, the podcast that talks grounded spirituality for everyday life. Today's episode is an interesting one. It has a crossover with spirituality, religion, and politics. And we're talking about propaganda, not in the obvious way, not just history books, not just politics, not just something out there, but something much closer, something that shapes belief quietly in religion, in politics, in spirituality, and in the way we learn what we think is true. And I want to start with a question. What if some of what you believe doesn't actually belong to you? Today, I am joined by a historian to explore this because propaganda isn't new. It's deeply embedded in human history. Rod, the historian from TikTok, is joining me today, and we'll jump into that episode or that interview a little bit later. Propaganda is often so misunderstood. It's not just lies. It's the shaping of perception, the framing of information to guide belief and behavior. And this is where we need to talk about Edward Bernays. Bernays understood something most people still underestimate. People don't make decisions based on logic. They make them based on emotion, identity, and belonging. He didn't just sell products, he sold meaning. One of his most famous campaigns reframed cigarettes as torches of freedom. Not smoking, freedom. Not a habit, identity. And that's where propaganda is powerful. Because when belief is tied to identity, it stops being questioned. I myself, as many of you know, am a behavioral economist. It's something that has framed my language with my guides. It has framed how I receive information. As I always say, your guides are going to talk to you in a language that you understand, and that is what I understand. This is a very different period of time. We saw how propaganda shaped the United States election in 2024 and in years before that. And as we go into that interview, you will see much more of that and how it did come into play. But I want to let's talk about religion for a second. The meaning of religion versus the control that it does have. Religion has always served a purpose. It gives structure, it gives meaning, it gives community, which I think is invaluable. But it also creates authority. Historically, belief has been used to mobilize people, sometimes for unity and sometimes for conflict. We see this in events like Crusades and the Protestant Reformation. These weren't just spiritual movements, they were battles over narrative, over who defines the truth. And the key shift happens when questioning is discouraged, when fear is introduced and belief becomes absolute. That's when meaning can become control. Spirituality, again, is the modern influence. Now, let's bring this into the present. Spirituality often positions itself as freedom, but it is not immune to influence. In fact, it can be more subtle because it operates in emotional and unseen spaces. Common messages you will receive is you create your reality. If it didn't happen, you blocked it. Stay high vibe. These can feel incredibly empowering, but they can also become incredibly limiting. Because when everything is your responsibility, there is no room for complexity, no room for nuance, no room to question. True guidance should expand you, not trap you in a loop of self-blame. Propaganda in politics is expected, but often misunderstood. It doesn't need to lie, it needs to select what to show, what to repeat, what to emphasize. During the Cold War, both sides believed they were right. Both had narratives, both had truth. So the question becomes, is truth objective or is it being framed? Propaganda works because of human psychology. We are wired for belonging, for safety, and for certainty. And when something gives you that, we don't question it. We defend it, even when it's challenged, because belief isn't just thought, it's identity. I watch in horror many things on social media, not just around spirituality and the control it seems to have, and the control many people that haven't studied or haven't mentored or have not grown or done their own shit will hold over people. We see people becoming defensive of the people they follow, the people they want to believe. And you cannot remove influence completely. That would be unrealistic. But you can become more aware. You can ask the question, is this mine or was it given to me? That question will change everything. Thinking with discernment, thinking with breaking down what you have been taught to what you want to learn, breaking down whether you have just received something or it's something that you have gone out of your way to learn is a way to move away from propaganda, to be less vulnerable for propaganda. So we're going to move into the interview with the wonderful Rod from, he's from Alabama. Rod is a historian, and congratulations, Rod, you have just graduated. I saw that. This interview was actually done around 3 weeks ago, so in the early part of April. The interesting thing about this is that both Rod and I talk about false flag events and how Trump's movement has relied on many false flag events. And I'm going to leave that up to discernment and for you to decide how you feel about that. I will leave you with this interview now. As with always, my new predictions and covering predictions that have happened, I will talk about at the end of the episode. And we will end on a guided meditation based on empowerment and knowledge. So thank you again to Rod for taking part in today's episode. So, as I have promised, today's episode, we're really focusing on propaganda and how it shapes people's belief system, whether that is spiritual, whether that is political, whether it is just what you buy on a day-to-day basis. And we have Rod Smith. Now, many of you will know Rod as Rod the Historian on social media. He's been an amazing advocate for both Laurie Rivers and myself, but also a great educator in a space that needs education, which is around politics, around history, and around where people really need grounded information. So welcome, Rod. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We've seen so much propaganda across, like you're really well known for your TikToks, and must be very frustrating for you because I know that you did lose a rather big TikTok platform. Yeah. And then they accuse you of being a propagandist, whereas you're actually fighting against the propaganda. How have you seen propaganda play out on social media, especially, let's go back to 2024.
Mm-hmm.
that fateful year. How did you see propaganda really play out on social media?
On social media. So it has modernized it, if it makes sense, because throughout history, a lot of folks don't realize that propaganda is always going on, and it's not
Yes.
always necessarily lies. But what propaganda does is taps into the emotion of people, and
Yes.
you know if you can get enough of an emotional connection, like you said with spirituality, if you can get enough of that emotion and people to believe in whatever it is that you're trying to push, you can get them to do just about anything. And so when you talk about 2024 in particular, I want to take it back to when Donald Trump first came down those escalators.
Yep.
That's when here in the United States, we really, really started to see a shift in the way that propaganda was used. And it's not always direct. You have the situation where it's misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda is a byproduct of both of them. Uh,
Yes.
and so in 2024, there was a great disinformation campaign that was going on, and we know that some of it may have been the Russians, some of it may have
Yes.
been the Chinese. I think Iran played a part in it, and as a result, many of us Americans, and this happens all over the globe, we played a part in it by spreading misinformation. Now, the difference between dis and mis, for anyone that don't know, is dis is intentionally doing it. You are
Yes.
intentional in spreading false information. Misinformation is kind of like, maybe our parents or our grandparents are on social media. They see a headline and they don't realize that says CNN.net instead of CNN.com. And so they reshare something and it scares the heck out of people. And that disinformation campaign goes on, and then there is your propaganda. All of that disinformation and misinformation, which is intentional by someone, goes out, and you start to control a populace. For instance, in 2024, like you talked about, people said that they didn't trust Kamala Harris, but they couldn't tell you why they didn't trust Kamala Harris. They just knew that they didn't trust her, and Trump, he's going to tell it like it is. And
Yep.
then here we are today.
One of the big propaganda pieces around Kamala Harris was her work as a prosecutor
Hmm.
and how she would prosecute the little person that was using drugs. But it was actually the opposite way. She was actually trying to keep people out of jail and she was
Yes.
working with organizations. That was a huge bit of propaganda. Someone that was Australian told me that piece. The information that they share that belittles the other candidate or the other company or the other provider, and then to gain traction like that. It's the old saying, isn't it? Put someone else's light out in order to make yours shine. It's
Yes.
huge. And on social media especially, we have seen the one piece of propaganda that really sticks in my mind is the bots that they paid to
Yes.
make it sound like there was a lot more traction on other sides. You
I'm
came
sorry.
across that?
Yes, I was gonna say I'm in agreement with that, and like you and Lori had talked about during 2024, where you didn't really see a path of him winning. I kept telling people, I was like, "Hey, I'm here in Alabama. This is the heart of Trump land, and I'm telling those flags and those things are not out like they were in 2016 or 2020. We know what all took place, or we have some idea
Yes.
of it.
Mhm.
Um, but you're right when you talk about the bots. It gives this false belief uh, that he has more support than he does, and that is a new thing to Americans. We've seen it in other places, especially these areas where someone like Vladimir Putin has tried to control. We have
Yes.
seen this all play out before. We have never just been in a place where, hey, we are the target this time. Uh,
Yeah, and you're looking at a populace that is very spread out and also very spread out in their education. I always say there's education gaps in different areas of America. So they don't necessarily see the reality, or they're not being
Mhm.
made aware of the reality through traditional news sources, and they
Yes.
rely on social media for their news, and their social media is full of propaganda. But when do you believe that propaganda started? Now, take away what happened in 2024. Propaganda, in your mind as a historian,
Mhm.
um, when was the first time that you think propaganda was flagged?
Here in the US, if I had to take a guess, one of the ones that stick out to me the most, and this, like I said in the beginning, not all propaganda are necessarily lies, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
World War I, where
Yep.
we started seeing all of the posters of Uncle Sam wants you, you know, and that gave Americans this sense of, oh, we're patriots, we're going to fight on behalf of the United States and we're going to protect our allies. And so that I that's the one moment that just sticks out to me at the moment where propaganda happened here in the States. Eh, no secret here. I'm a black man here in the United States, in other parts of the globe. The propaganda of fearing everything that is black
I
here, especially the state that I live in, Alabama. Alabama is no stranger to racism.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the propaganda of just fearing other, there are, believe it or not, in the year of our Lord 2026, there are still parts of this state that I should not show up in. That anyone that looks like me should show up in. And I've made a video, I don't think it was last Christmas, but maybe the Christmas before, where I was laughing where all of these people were trying to tell us, Coleman is a Hallmark Christmas town. I was like, no, the hell it isn't. And so some guy was saying he was gonna go there to prove that it wasn't. I was like, hey, my brother, it was good knowing you. Overall, in the US, you talked about people of various education background. I put it to you like this, and then I'll give you the statistic a little later in the conversation about the country as a whole. 25% of the state of Alabama, adults, 25% are functionally illiterate. And so when you talk about something like propaganda, it's not that hard to control the people here. And when you let me just go ahead and jump right into that statistic. I'm sorry. Yes, when you talk about 54% of the American population reading at or below a sixth grade level, with one in
Mhm.
five comprehending at a third grade level, you're talking about dealing with people like children. They're children like in the mind. Um, well, it's not hard to control them. And I'm saying this as a Christian, by the way. When you take a book like the Bible, which is written at a 12th grade level, that in itself can be used as propaganda. Why? Because people don't even know how to critically think to question something that might not necessarily sound right. And so,
It's really important that people learn. I mean, I've noticed such a lack of critical thinking amongst people that want to argue. And with my work, I'm all about empowering people, not controlling them. And I think that people think that spirituality is a cult. It's not. The spirit world exists because it exists. It is the truth. And I bring the evidence on a regular basis.
yes, you do.
There's a lot of religious propaganda that goes on,
Hmm.
and what religion actually means. And I'm seeing that control people,
Hmm.
which I think is a shame. But how do you think empires use narrative to maintain control? So that's an interesting one at the moment. And we've just seen the fall of Hungary. We have just seen the
Yes.
fall of the right wing in Hungary,
Hmm.
which is amazing. We see, just to give you an example, a lot of people that only watch Israeli news only see
Yes.
things from the point of is, and I am any religion is inclusive, but Israel is using propaganda, and a lot of people that live in Israel only see Israel news. I have with my Patreon, I'm noticing a lot of Americans, your news is very controlled at the moment. You're not getting a lot of stuff outside of the US. Do you think they're using that to control?
Yes. In fact, if you look at some of the videos that I post on TikTok in particular, and I just end up sharing them out to the other social medias after I put them there. Uh, one of the places that I talk about often is Israel, but you can't use the freaking name.
Mhm.
You know, and
Yep.
so I speak really coded because if a certain group of people get wind of what you're talking about, they want to mass report you. But I always refer to them as our boss. And it's because for some reason they have more say than American presidents. You're right, that a lot of Americans, they are heavy on everything Israel. And if you say the wrong thing, you'll get labeled anti-Semitic, and then
Yes.
you're probably out of a job, probably embarrassed in the public. It's the
And
most unreal
it's
thing I've
not
ever seen.
the thing is that I have a lot of amazing Jewish friends that
Mhm.
don't necessarily believe in what's happening in Israel.
Yeah.
And I think it's really sad that a whole religion has
Mhm.
been tarnished with the actions of a madman. So let's talk about this because this is religion and
Mhm.
religion being used as propaganda.
Yes.
Let's talk about what Israel say about Muslims in order to build that hate, and that is pure propaganda. We know that extremes of any religion is bad. We know that the extremists can be terrorists. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
to say that every Muslim on this planet is a terrorist.
Right.
Have you seen the propaganda that comes out of Israel and, to a certain extent, the US now? Anti.
I haven't seen as much from Israel other than the times that their leader Netanyahu is on my screen, but we definitely hear it out of this White House.
Mhm.
And it's so funny how you talked about how the religion is used as a propaganda and as the extreme measure to try to get their point across. What I've always been perplexed about is when you talk about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, we are all Abrahamic religions, which mean we serve the same God. We just have different ways that we get to that point. I have never
Yes.
understood how in the world they have successfully corrupted the
You
minds of so many to believe
Mhm.
that we're different people. We might call our deity a different name, but it all is the God of Abraham. So,
And this is the thing is, I never really understood it. I'm an economist. I never studied social studies, or
yes.
I did a little bit of theology. My eldest son can sit down and explain it to a T, and it fascinates me. And he is very, very passionate about it, but he explains it really, really well. It's the hate fueled that
Mhm.
builds the propaganda that turns religions against each other. We had it in Ireland. I grew up during the IRA realm,
Yes.
and as a Catholic, or growing up as a Catholic, um, and my father was in the British Army, so that was another layer that was added to that. The propaganda against certain religions has caused most wars in this world.
Yes.
And currently, we have a propaganda fueled war that has nothing to do with what everyone's told you it's about. The weapons of mass destruction. I'm getting a bit of deja vu here, with the talk of weapons of mass destruction. The other propaganda tool that was
Yes.
used, and we're seeing that now. But this particular war is all about market manipulation.
Yes. And Uh, just a quick, I want to issue this plug here for anybody that does not know what you're talking about with Northern Ireland and Ireland. Yeah, that is probably the most insane fighting I have ever seen in my life. There is a gate that separates the side.
Separates.
You have to go through a checkpoint to get to the other side because
Not
something
so
may pop
much
off.
anymore,
Oh,
but it
has it
was
calmed down?
during the 80s
Ooh,
and 90s, it was pretty horrific. And it was started, the IRA had a realm, a real terrorist realm, but they also
wait.
hit London. They wanted a united Ireland. And I grew up, I went to university in London, I went to school in London, and there was no rubbish bins. I still put my rubbish in my handbag. because
Wow.
bombs were put in rubbish bins.
That is
On my
scary.
wedding day, people coming by tube were delayed because um, the bomb scares. Yeah, it was pretty horrific and went on for a really long time.
It may
There's a really good actually dramatization that really opens your eyes about the how they got people, because propaganda is also used. Okay, so
mhm,
propaganda is used to get people to sign up to be part of the IRA or
right.
a terrorist organization. They of course are going to sell you a lie or
Yeah,
a belief system that gets you to act that way. And the way, I can't remember, what was his name? The head of Sinn Féin. I can't remember his name. Um, he used young teenagers to do his dirty work,
that is scary.
and they died,
Mm,
like
wow.
the young bombers. And I do worry, like, there's a lot of false flag events that highlight things,
That's
and
just
they use propaganda to bring in the vulnerable, and it's the vulnerable people that are susceptible to propaganda, whether it is religion, whether it is spirituality, whether it is terrorist organizations, whether it
mhm.
is political organizations. And they aim for the vulnerable.
They do, and you talk about false flag events. I just and you probably have, already gotten some sort of guidance on it. I have a fear that this man, in desperation to try and run away from everything that's happening, will at least attempt to stage one, and we know that they don't mind staging things. Um,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I do have that fear. And to go back to your original point of talking about weapons of mass destruction, I don't know if people know this. Bibi Netanyahu has been talking about Iran being 6 months to 2 years away from a nuclear weapon since 1992. That is the
Yeah.
longest 2 years of my life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it is. And when we talk about vulnerable, and in my mind, and what I've been shown, Trump is an arsehole. We're just going to put that out there. But
That's who he.
he's also incredibly vulnerable because and that's why he should
Mhm.
never have been president. He is incredibly vulnerable because he's incredibly vulnerable to manipulation because of what's out there and what he's told by others, and the propaganda that he's probably been fed to act.
Mhm.
The way that he's acted is coming from Bibi Netanyahu.
Um, I think I was talking to my mom, or it might have been one of my friends. But anyway, whoever I was talking to, I was saying, you can see in real time this man is panicking. He doesn't
Yes.
know up from down, left from right. And,
No.
and it feels like everything we're doing at this point is just on my gut feeling. My gut feeling. This is what you know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Do you think, I know that we're more aware of propaganda now,
mhm.
and I see in my Patreon we discuss things, and they're really aware of false flag offense. They're really aware of Trump and his own sense of propaganda. Like, he will come out and he will say we're winning this war, and there's not a hope in hell that he's going to win this war against Iran. It's just not
No,
going to happen.
no.
He's gonna it's going to cause a huge fall for him. But do you think that people were aware in history of propaganda and how it was used? Or do you think that we are only becoming more aware of it now with the advent of social media?
Think that we yes, to that last question. I think that we're just now becoming aware of it. And because and this is probably where you see the government really wanting to try and control the internet as a whole. We've never
Yes.
had this much access to information, and so now we can see in real time. Man, you're lying. We just saw you, on video
Yep.
saying X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't think the people in the past ever really knew that they were subject to propaganda. I mean, I want you to think about this. George Bush once called Saddam Hussein and Iraq part of some sort of axis of evil, and many Americans and people from Australia, the Polish were there, um, and the Brits, or the folks in the United Kingdom. Many went to die behind a lie. And,
Yes.
I think about that all the time. These people went thinking that they were defending some sort of freedom, and they have no freaking clue that the weapons did not exact I mean, we went over there
Yes.
looking for weapons of mass destruction and didn't even find a super soaker.
Uh-huh.
It's just it's so sad to think that we have been subject and vulnerable to propaganda for so long, and we're just now finding out what it really is.
Yes. Yeah. Um, it's used not just in the political realm, though. We see it used. I always liken Trump to a used car salesman, where they will always run down the opposition business, the opposition company, and I hate that part of marketing. I've worked in communications and marketing literally many, many years, and anyone that uses propaganda against another organization do not have full faith in what they offer. So that's the same for politicians, the same for organizations. People will. I got attacked recently by a medium on social media who, well, I'm going to use the medium, who decided that um, she always markets on the fact that she only goes direct. That's the only way to do mediumship. She even took on John Edward because he doesn't go direct in his things. But all that does is try and control the people that watch their stuff and go, oh well, they
Mhm.
must be the best because they, they go direct, which I think is bullshit because it doesn't prove a connection, and there's other
Right.
stories behind it. But to me, that's a form of propaganda. To me, pushing down another organization, another car, another marketing company, whatever it is propaganda.
Yeah.
And people are very, very vulnerable to it. Have you seen much of that on social media where someone's trying to belittle someone else
Yeah.
outside of the political field?
A lot of the people that have done, political commentary, and they have relatively large followings, many of
Mhm.
them are at each other's throat right now, and I can
Okay, I haven't seen that.
they are going at each other, and so now it has taken everybody off the trajectory of focusing on, the issues that are really at hand, into getting caught up in, I'm following this person, I'm with this person, and there is a
Oh.
whole battle, and I for transparency, I sit in the panels with, some people that have gone back and forth at each other, before, and I was just like, "Wait, what is happening here?" Like, and so,
And
yeah,
it's
it's a real thing, the propaganda, they're everybody's going at each other, and I don't know if this is just, like, chaotic energy coming from the top on down, or what, but it has been quite the spectacle to see, and so I was like, "Well, let me stay in my lane."
there's a lot of fear, and people tend to react when there's fear on board, and people are losing audiences because TikTok is now being so controlled and moderated and monitored that people are feeling as if they're losing their income, their platform,
Mhm.
their views, and their points not getting across, so they start going for each other, and that's exactly what, organizations and countries want. Trump has built fear in everyone with a
Yes,
lot of
he
the
has.
propaganda. So part of his propaganda is to throw out all of these executive orders. And those that don't learn about the Constitution, don't learn about how government works, think, oh, it's law. As soon as he throws out an executive
Yeah.
order, it's law. And it's got so many steps to go through before it actually gets passed. And about 70% of everything that he says is being thrown out and can't go into law. So that then breeds fear, and everyone starts going for each other, and then nobody's actually concentrating on the problems in hand.
You are absolutely correct about all of that, and that I think for me, that is, and I try to look at, the glass half full. I think for me, that is the one thing that gives me hope, and I tell people all the time, like, "Hey, they keep losing in these court cases." And the one thing that I do recall you saying, um, once, everybody started to calm down and realize, like, "Hey, this joker is back in office somehow." I remember you saying, "Okay, he may be in the role of president, but it's going to be quite a litigious process."
Yes,
Or I might be
it would be
paraphrasing.
really litigious.
Yes.
Yes,
And
I s
there has been so many lawsuits, and they are losing.
Yes,
But
they are losing a lot of them, but it's not publicized. And
no.
that's another form of propaganda. It's like mushrooms. You in America at the moment are
Yeah.
being kept as mushrooms. And I said the moment that he was sworn in, because I wasn't convinced he was going to be sworn in for some reason, they wouldn't show me. And around the whole election, I didn't feel like there was an election. I feel like, I just felt that there was something not happening. Um, but at the moment he was sworn in, the first thing I told everyone, get a VPN. If you want to be up to date with the news, if you want to know what's
Mhm.
going on outside of your country, get a VPN. And a lot of my Patreons have got that.
I have
So
one, because again, like you said, we're being shielded, and another form of propaganda that's happening right now. So there is, and this could be more of a global right wing type thing, but I know here in the states it is quite ridiculous. Right, there's like this anti science movement that is happening here,
yes.
and
Hmm.
we just sent 4 people, to make a trip around the moon and back. His people are out there talking about how it was, AI and CGI,
Yes.
and so people were like, folks were laughing about it, and I was like, "Yo, this is not funny. This is that continued anti-science stuff that they're doing right now." They do not want you to believe that, anything other than whatever God that is that they're serving, because it's not the one of Abraham. I don't Trump might be it. Um, but,
I don't think after this weekend, Trump is very popular with the Christian movement.
no, I am quite interested to see because they're mad right now, but history would suggest to me, the recent history of him, something will happen and they'll fall back in line.
I don't think so this time. I
You don't
think
think so?
this is
Oh, okay.
part of his downward
Well,
spiral.
make my heart
People
break.
are, this is he will come forward and say, I'm okay. Uh, the part of the propaganda problem with Trump is that he says so those that follow believe. But so when he says that he's winning this war, they believe. When he says that he's the best, they believe.
Yes.
When he says, I am well, I've had a cognitive test, they believe. But the problem is that now every step that he does, so the Epstein files, the
Mhm.
Melania issue, the Iran, the stuff he's putting on his Truth Social, the following or I believe gets less and less and less. So his base gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's a good thing. Look at the propaganda that was spread about Biden. Look, Biden was an older man. He was tired. Let's not lie about that. He did
Right.
do a few stumbles. He had a speech impediment,
R
but his cognitively, he was head and above Trump.
Tell people that all the time, say, "Yo, if you can just get through him speaking really slowly," I said, his message is very coherent. It makes a lot of sense when you actually sit and listen. But you asked the question, and I just pulled it up here in my notes. So I guess I must have been thinking about it, about social media and the role that it has played in propaganda. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I had researched about it was how the algorithms amplify uh, emotionally charged content. So social
Yes.
media is the algorithm, the computer itself
Hmm.
is feeding into the propaganda. And I don't know if that's written into the code or
Think it's written in it. What it does is it's not so much written into the code, but what happens is, and it happens with every form of content, is that something that is sensationalism, something that is sensational or is emotionally charged gets a bit of traction because somebody's going to watch it and they're going to forward it to 7 or 8 people, and then 7 or 8 people are going to forward it to 10 or 20 people. So that builds the algorithm. I
Okay,
was
yeah.
talking about this with people, like I had Megan Alyssa on my podcast the other week, and we were talking about our videos that are educational videos about spirit world. The boring stuff don't get any traction, but the stuff that's sensationalized gets traction, which is why that we are fighting against the Hollywood-esque or the real, I'm talking to, I don't know, Queen Elizabeth,
Yeah.
because that gets traction, even though it's not true and that person's not a medium, that gets the traction, whereas our educational, very grounded stuff that wants to teach people about spirituality doesn't get traction. So the algorithm is like a rolling snowball.
Okay. That makes a ton of sense because I do wonder about that because there'll be times where you give us just a peek into your world. I'm like, hey, yo, this is some good knowledge. And then it doesn't get as much attention as again our favorite subject, Donald Trump. The moment
Donald
you
Trump.
said it
Exactly. Which is, and you've also got to remember that you've got people that are on the creator fund that are getting paid for their views and likes. So
Mhm.
they're going to create sensational topics, whether they believe it or not, whether it's propaganda.
Yeah,
Then you've got the added thing that different political parties are actually paying influencers or paying micro
yeah,
influencers to build propaganda. So it's coming from all areas.
yeah. You're
And now
wow.
you have a government that's pretty much controlling what you guys see on social media. Um, there's a lot of money out there if somebody wants to build a new social media platform similar to TikTok, influencers, and not just on a political side of things. There will be falsehoods about products, there will be falsehoods about services that build a service or a product. And we've
Yeah.
seen it this weekend. There has been so much, and I call it propaganda, but it's bad marketing. People going to Coachella, and there's been something going on about Coachella tickets going missing, people being invited and then and it's just to build the momentum. Half of it isn't true.
No, it isn't at all. I I have never now that you mentioned, I've never really even thought about the propaganda in the marketing. And the more I think about it, it is something about the I guess the clickbait factor of it.
Yes.
Where people were making a big deal that it wasn't at Coachella, but it was Justin Bieber and Usher were arguing at a party or something like that. And this thing like exploded on TMZ, and I thought to myself, how in the heck is that even news? Like, what?
Yeah.
Why do we care?
Because people do care. And America in particular, are very much attached to the power social relationship.
Yeah.
And they're very attached to aspiring to be like these people. So there's been a lot of over consumerization. There's been a lot of over purchasing, over wanting, people living above their means to live
Yeah.
up to that standard. And I always say, well, you've got a reality TV star in the White House. When
Yes.
America stops picking their president according to the king and queen of the prom,
Hmm.
you're going to get what you need rather than what you think you need.
When I guess I was in middle school. There was this show that used to come on MTV called The Real World. And I remember
Uh-huh.
everyone was so obsessed with it. And then there was Jersey Shore. Reality TV just exploded here in the States. And I
Yep.
recall jokingly saying, man, we're gonna end up with a reality TV president one day the way y'all are going.
Yep.
I would choose my
And
words more carefully next time.
you spoke it into
I
being.
think I spoke Donald Trump.
But the truth is that what we're seeing now is people realizing that there is such a wealth gap.
Mhm.
And the wealth has been created by the person watching. And instead of getting people to work towards that wealth or realizing that they can have it too, or some way part of that,
Yeah.
they've been kept in this bubble of this is how life is. This I always say that Americans are in and I have a lot of American clients and I absolutely love them, but they're kept in an abusive relationship because they're pretty much in debt from the moment they're born.
Yes.
And they're kept into that. It is normal to have debt. It is normal because you need debt to have your credit rating or your credit
Yes.
score. And then you get into debt when you go to university, and then you get into debt when you have an accident because the hospital bills. And you were told that that is normal.
Mhm.
It ain't normal.
It
It isn't.
mhm. I
The
think
the
a lot of us, when we thought that we had lost TikTok for good here, uh, a lot of us went on to, Red
the
Note,
Chinese one,
to
Red
the
Note,
Chi
yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
and when we went over there, I think our eyes were open for the first time that, "Hey, we are nowhere near the best at the things that we think that we are." The people in China get part of that propaganda that we've been talking about. We've always been told, oh, they are very controlled. They don't have these freedoms and they're jealous of what you have, this, that, and the other. And
Uh-huh.
then, something as simple as uh, someone coming on saying, y'all pay for your EMTs, your ambulance services,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And there's so much propaganda, like, Australia has, this thing called the skilled migrants visa.
Okay.
So people can come to Australia that are nurses, that are teachers, that are carpenters, and we have an amazing life. Like, Australia is an amazing place to live, and I've lived in different places around the world. But the amount of people that say, "Oh, I couldn't live there because of the spiders." Do you know, I've seen like two poisonous spiders in the 30 years I've lived here. They are big, but they are not poisonous. And we do not have kangaroos jumping down the main street. We don't have crocodiles in our back garden. It is a normal to live. It's such a mix. Australia, I always say, is a mix between the UK and America. So we get the best of both worlds.
Oh, now that's
But
cool.
we have socialist medicine. Um, we we're not bankrupt when we get sick, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so many people go, "I'd love to come and live in Australia, and I could get a migrant's visa, and I could do this, and I could do that," but spiders. And they I they're
I'm gonna
not that
be
bad.
honest with you. Those videos do scare me.
This
It'd be like this
seriously.
big thing that looks like a hand on the wall. I'm like, "Oh my god, no, please don't."
And those are the non-poisonous ones. It's the little ones that are poisonous.
Oh
The
my
big ones
gosh.
are just they
Ugh.
keep the flies in check. Um,
Wow.
yeah, they're just yeah. Then and somebody asked me the other day, "How do you leave your door open with all those giant spiders?" Spiders are gonna find a way to get into my house whether I have the door open or not.
Uh,
But but so talking about propaganda, let's
yes, ma'am.
talk about the propaganda around the deportation of immigrants and how the right have portrayed this mass deportation that has gone on, saying it is all criminals, and also the propaganda that says that the immigrants in America are pulling from the tax or not paying tax, and how that's built a picture in people's head that immigrations and immigrants are a drain on society where in fact they give to society.
Yeah, one of the most unfortunate things, and this goes back to that thing where I was telling you about 54% of the populace reading at or below a 6th
Uh-huh.
grade level. They never take the time to actually educate themselves. They listen to
Yeah.
someone like Fox News, One American News Network, Newsmax to tell them what they think they need to know.
Yes.
And so many of them will take one incident
Uh-huh.
of something that an immigrant has done, and then they paint everybody else with the
With
broad
the
brush
same.
of it.
Mhm.
And you know, I cannot tell you how many times I've had to hear people talk about the situation with Lake and Riley, which happened, if I'm not mistaken, actually under like Bush or something. So it, somehow
Yeah.
the Republicans were at like in charge of things during the time. But they do it to scare people, and it's a classic case of what I talked about when I said, I was black. They're
Mhm.
otherizing these people, and so
Yes.
because people don't have the ability to critically think, they
Yes.
automatically take what is being said about the people that are immigrating here and they run with it. And what they fail to realize is the billions of dollars that the immigrants actually put into the economy. In fact, a governor down in Florida, Ron DeSantis, or as I like to call him, Ron DeSatan, he
Mhm.
when he was on his Trumpy situation, started removing a lot of the immigrants out of the state of Florida, rounding them up,
Yes.
sending them elsewhere. Florida lost $12 billion by getting rid of those people. A state that constantly has tourism lost $12 billion. And then he
I
went on to have a,
predicted
a
that
fight
a
with a
year
fictional
before it
mouse.
happened. I predicted that a year before it happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. I tried to warn people. But what I'm seeing in Australia, because we have, a Trump wannabe called Pauline Hanson, who is an
Mm.
awful, awful human being, um, who is all about her "Make Australia Great Again" logo. Don't know where she got that from. Is always talking about how immigrants, and I'm an immigrant to Australia, um, how they steal the housing situation, how they make housing harder and less affordable. Housing in Australia went up exponentially during COVID when there was no immigration happening. There
Right.
was no influx. We had, literally our borders were shut tight. Secondly, I I have been here 30 years, but because I am not an Australian citizen yet, don't tell anyone because I keep forgetting to do the paperwork. I'm still an Irish citizen. When I bought this house, I had to sign documents and go through an approval because they have a limit on being in the country a certain amount of time before you can purchase a house.
Oh,
So they're putting that fear into people, and it's nothing to do with immigrants.
yeah.
And we also we don't have illegal immigrants because it's so hard to get into our country. We have people that do overstay their visas, but they are usually caught very quickly. We have most of our immigrants come and they are doctors. They are people that we need because we are such a big and vast country that we don't have, and we've grown so much
Hmm.
over the last 50 years or so that we don't have the infrastructure that we need. So we are bringing in immigrants that are builders to help build new houses. We
Yeah.
are bringing in teachers to help teach. We are bringing in doctors because we have a shortage of doctors. We
Yeah.
are bringing in nurses because we have a shortage of nurses. Yet the right wing are telling us that the immigrants are bad and they must go and we must stop immigration. So,
They believe them. Yeah, they absolutely believe them. And it's so funny when you talk about different various groups of immigrants. Here in the states, right now they're after Hispanic and Latino people.
yes,
Um, but before that, they Middle Eastern folks, they were after all of them. And I always
yes,
told people, I'm like, it's so funny that you all are afraid of them because some of the nicest people that I've ever met in my life just so happen to be people of the Islamic faith. While
yes.
on the other hand, the meanest people I've ever met were Christians
White Christian men,
in particular.
and women. Yeah, and
Yeah,
women. But the real Christians are the heroes at the moment because they're standing up
they're
for what
standing up to
they
the
see
nonsense.
is, yeah, they're standing up to the nonsense. They're saying it is not Christian like to do what he is doing.
Hmm.
It is not the teaching that we believe in, and they are the real heroes at the moment. The faith of Islam is peaceful as a whole. The
Extremely.
extremists are not. And
Right.
those are the ones that we want to eradicate. But the whole of Iran is not made up of extremists.
It is not at all. Again, a lot of the Middle Eastern people that I know just so happen to be from Iran, and they're
Uh-huh.
just beautiful and kind people. And because of this propaganda machine, ever since September 11th, 2001, here in the States, they have put just this pure fear of not knowing these people at the forefront. It's so disgusting because a lot of times, sometimes you'll be friends with a lot of these folks that feel this way, and you don't know that they feel like this until they either post something on like Facebook or they come out and just say something, and you have to take back like, oh, didn't know you thought like that.
In a way that you want to hurt people. And it's not
Yes,
about politics anymore. It is about humanity.
about
And
humanity.
just because I am a medium, I have a doctorate in behavioral economics. I know about propaganda. I know of politics. Just because I'm a medium doesn't mean to say that I can't talk about these topics without
Right.
knowledge. And I think people forget that. Before we finish up, thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
for taking part in today.
No, thank you.
Just in your words, how do you think people can help themselves to avoid being victims of propaganda? Now, it's obviously a vulnerability to a lot of people. It's often a lack of discernment and critical thinking. But propaganda isn't just about politics, it's about your day to day life, it's
Yes.
about your religion, it's about your spirituality, it's about what you purchase and what you expose your family to on a day to day basis.
Hmm.
How do you think people can help themselves? And you work with children, you're a teacher. Um, how would you help prepare families to not be subject to propaganda and therefore be made vulnerable, as well as preparing children to critically think?
I was answer your question to. I want to take it back to something that I mentioned earlier. Learning when you're seeing misinformation or disinformation. The one thing that and this is not just an American thing, this is probably global at this point. We do a bad job of just accepting the first thing that we see. And we either
Yes.
share it, we read it, and we take it for, the gospel, for the lack of a better phrase. But what we have to do to try to keep ourselves from being vulnerable to that false information, don't just take it from one source. Go and read through multiple sources. Make sure that the organization that you're getting your info from hasn't been corrupted in any way. Right now, here in the United States, I told you we're going through something that we've never seen before. We
Yes.
don't know that we can trust CBS. We don't know. Well, we've never trusted Fox News other than the right wing folks. Uh, but CNN is going through a weird thing. MSNBC is now MS Now, and they've changed what they're saying, and they're getting rid of people that were fan favorites. And so now we have to get to a place where we are looking at organizations that are independent. Yes, as much as I want that left leaning content, what I really need is something that's probably going to be non biased, something that's going to tell the story for what it is. And then I form my opinion from there. And so, one of the things that I really, really want to encourage people to do, read multiple sources. Yes, it may take a little bit of time, but do you want to know a lot and be ignorant? Or do you want to know everything that you possibly can and probably have an overload of information, but be accurate?
Hmm. Yeah. And the right wing have a habit of saying research, and I don't think they know how to. Their favorite thing
Their
is just
research is a
research it.
Reddit post.
Can I also say that teaching people not to use Google as a confirmation tool? So, what you
Yo,
put in Google or whatever your search engine is,
it's going to give
think
you what you
about
want.
the way that you phrase your question, because
Hmm.
it's going to give you what you want,
Yes.
and it's used as confirmation bias across the board.
Hmm.
So don't just take the first answers in Google. Think about uh, wording it in a way. It's the same as if you're having a mediumship reading. I always say I don't want to know anything about anyone. Okay,
Yeah.
because you can feed a medium information, because I want to speak to my father, and he was in the military and his name was Mark. So you're going to feed on that, whereas I want nothing. I don't
Yeah.
want to know who you want to connect with. I don't want to know any information, and who you get is who you get, and then we can dive a bit deeper.
Yeah.
So it's really important to be aware of the stuff that you are inhaling and how
Hmm.
you pass on information. And you've got 3 little ones. Are
Yes.
you teaching them to critically think?
Yes, we I do not sugarcoat anything from my girls because I look at how, some of our friends may shelter their kids. I'm like, forget that. Mine need to know.
Mhm.
And my oldest daughter, that young lady wants to know everything about everything. And so that curiosity, that desire to want to know the truth about any random situation, she is constantly searching for that. Now, my middle baby, that girl don't care. um, but we keep as much as the truth as we can about that because I don't obviously, I wanna be able to shelter them from some things, but I can't
Yes.
have them just going out blindly believing that everything is all, rainbows and unicorns.
Well, it's also as girls, it's really important to teach them to be vocal, to not
Yes,
be scared to ask questions,
absolutely.
and not be scared to set their boundaries with what they expect from the world and from people.
Yes.
Because too many girls are told to keep quiet. You're too noisy, you're too loud, you shouldn't have an opinion, don't ask questions. And then they're the ones that are vulnerable not only to things like propaganda, but vulnerable to domestic violence situations and putting
Yes.
up with less than they deserve. Always make them ask questions. Always make sure they are as loud and as obnoxious as they can be
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they will get what they need.
That's precisely what I want them to be, in terms of being vocal. Don't both of my parents, were in the service, which probably, honestly, is what really inspired me to at least go and do it for a little bit of time.
Yes, you
Um
did. Well done. Well done. And yeah, so thank you, Rod. I will put Rod's links to his socials in the show notes so you can go along and say hi to Rod. Thanks again to Rod Smith. I will include Rod's social media in today's show notes if you want to go along and give him a follow. He does touch on some subjects that many people are interested in, and he's not afraid to speak his mind and to help educate people. And there needs to be more education across the globe because propaganda is taking hold. We are watching this across social media and the way that people hang on to the first thing they see and take it as gospel. So please go along and follow Rod. And thank you, Rod Smith, for taking part in today's episode. And we're now going to do our Patreon shout outs. If you don't know about Patreon, Patreon is the platform where I do get to speak a lot freer. There's a lot more predictions over there. I have several events every month where you can join us for my coffee morning, which is my next coffee morning is on the 8th, which is the 7th in the US, where we get to have a chat. You get to ask me the questions you want to ask me about spirituality, current affairs, etc. That is happening on the 8th. Then we have our Magnificent Manifestors, where we talk about manifesting as well as answering your spiritual and political questions. And you also get the Patreon only podcast. For those wanting to work on their intuition, to work on their um, connection with their guides, work on their being open to spirit. The connected circle is at the end of the month. That's a great place to really start. That is part of our connected tier. It's such a great space, and so many people are giving me such amazing feedback on that. But hello to our new members, Lauren Liberty, Naomi Gonzalez, and EE. Thank you for joining. I look forward to seeing you in our events, and don't forget to, check out the collections. When you click on collections, it's going to show you a whole range of things that is available for you. You have the last 2-3 years of content to work your way through. So that is open for you. Don't forget, my August readings are open. Those that are members of my Patreon, there are discounts available for you. That is important. Couple of events I want to flag with you. I am in Sydney the week of the 18th to the 24th. There are still a couple, I think it's two um, appointments available for anyone that wants an in person reading with me whilst I am in Sydney. What else do we have going on? The 17th, which is the 16th in the US, Laurie Rivers and I are doing our next charts and channeling event. Oh my gosh, the hits we got from our last one. This is covering 3 months in time. It is a simple $50 to attend. They usually go on for 2 or 3 hours. It's a great event. And if you cannot attend because of time, I know that everyone is in a different part of the globe, or prior commitments, the full recording will be sent to you within about 5 days of the event. Um, and also, I have just released, if you are in Victoria, I'm on a day trip to Bendigo. I have a live event in August, which has just gone up. I was shocked how many tickets went immediately. But there are tickets still available. That is in August. Um, Looking forward to doing a live event. So that is a Patreon. I've done my Patreon shout outs. I'm going to talk about some predictions that I've made and what I see coming in the next couple of months. I need to do a video. I've had so many predictions happen in the last couple of weeks on stuff that I have said probably from mid last year. US military pulling out of Germany. That was a prediction I made almost a year ago. Philippines earthquake. That happened just yesterday. The royal announcement of a new baby, that has just happened too. Lots of other little ones. So I think it's time I put a video together of predictions. Struggling to keep track of them, I'm not going to lie, but we are working on that. This week has been a bit busy in the Matilda household. I'm getting ready for the start of the next round of renovations. Yay, you're all sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of doing it, but it's part of life. Plus, I had a birthday, and my birthday was on the 4th, Monday. So thank you for all of the wonderful messages. Our Patreon community are beautiful. Seriously, if you join Patreon for no other reason than to be part of such a beautiful, supportive, loving community, even when I was on live, I think I was on live on Sunday, and somebody asked after another member who's currently traveling in Italy, wanting to know how they were enjoying it. Just the fact that you've got people around the globe all coming together and supporting each other, not just in your spiritual journey, but in your everyday life and progress, and the ups and downs. It's so nice to belong to that community. Um, what I see coming in, I think that we are going to see an uptick in court appearances for major members of um, the administration. We are going to have a lot of secrets that come out accidentally. It's not going to be on purpose. It's like a slipped word. The truth is being shown. I'm also going to say that we're going to see again Trump's health take a decline. I think he's had an anesthetic or a treatment that needed anesthetic. I feel like he's had a surgery and that's going to come out. We're also going to see a threat being made towards his administration. So somebody's going to suddenly start a court proceedings, a legal proceedings saying, hey, you're propping him up. You're lying on his behalf. You're allowing him to do this and he is not fit. That is what's going to happen in the coming months. I stand by. I feel that we are in the end of Trump's reign as president. It could happen in May, it could happen in June, but I feel like we're very close to the end of that. We are going to see Another member of the royal family either arrested or questioned around Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's history. And we could also see someone from the royal household, so staff, come out and speak. A child connected to the royal family is going to be involved in an accident of some sort. I don't think it's serious, but it feels like there's a hospital visit, or it comes out that there's been a hospital visit. Here in Australia, we are going to see a new political party, or the threat of a new political party. Vote of no confidence coming in for Albanese. A fuel crisis, as in prices are going to go sky high. I know the budget was today. I believe the budget, it might have just been the Victorian budget. I haven't been paying attention. I'm not going to lie. A stimulus promise, or a promise of financial assistance to people that have certain jobs. Not every household, but it's if you do this job or you're a part of this team, it's connected to fuel and having to go to work. Middle East, I still see a Navy boat going down and a problem with the submarine. I think we're going to see more water skirmishes. Funny, that was in my 2025 predictions, that there was going to be like water skirmishes. This is what I was seeing. I was just too early. All right, we are going to end today on a guided meditation. Today's meditation is for those wanting to come back to self and trust. Take a moment to get comfortable. Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and a longer breath out. Now imagine all around you are voices, beliefs, expectations, and opinions. Things you've been told are true. Just notice them. No judgment. Now gently step back from them. Create space. And notice you are still here. There is a part of you beneath influence, beneath conditioning. Connect to that now and ask yourself, what feels true for me? No pressure, no forcing, just noticing. Take a breath and release what isn't yours. And slowly, when you are ready, return. This episode isn't about telling you what to believe. It's about asking you to question it. Because awareness is where your power begins. As always, if this has been helpful to you, please share. Perhaps in the comments, you can share what you have always held a belief of and have learnt that that wasn't true. It can be something that you were conditioned to believe as a child. It can be something that you were taught and now realize that you have other options. But our community is all about sharing and teaching each other, as well as learning from each other. Just a reminder that this weekend I have a Mother's Day in Australia, a small, intimate, evidential mediumship event. It is a 10-person event where everybody that attends will receive a reading. And I want to remind people that there is a discount for that for Patreon members. It will be in the collections and discounts tab. All information about today's episode is in the show notes, including my upcoming events and my event in Bendigo. I would love to see many of you there. I hope today's episode has helped you shape what is yours, because we don't have to believe everything we are given. Thanks again to Rod Smith, Rod the historian. This has been Beyond This. Take care.